Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati Ji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. How do we move past unpleasant thoughts or experiences? The nature of nature is change. It's like saying, how do I move past this wave in the ocean? You just stay in one place. The wave's going to move. It's the nature of the waves of the ocean. How do you move past this night? You just stay in one place. You don't actually have to do anything. The sun is going to rise automatically. The nature of nature is change, and that's not only the external nature, but that's the internal nature as well. And so our thoughts are just waves. They arise, they're there for a moment, and they go. You can think of them like bubbles, like kids play bubbles and they blow bubbles, and there's a bubble and it exists for a moment and then it pops. And then they blow more and there's more bubbles and they exist for a moment and then they pop. It's the nature of it. You wouldn't say, how do I get rid of this bubble? Just wait a moment. It'll pop. It's what bubbles do. The problem with thoughts is that we actually hold on to them. It's not the thought itself that stays. It's that the mind grabs onto that pattern of thought because it's a habit, because it gets something out of it. Being negative and judgmental, and it's really fun, and it, makes us temporarily feel really good about ourselves, so we keep doing it. Holding grudges and being angry. It's a good rush of endorphins. Gives us something to think about that makes us feel very both righteous and also victimized. So if we are not deliberately, consciously or unconsciously, deliberately recreating the same thought over and over and over again, it pops like a bubble. So if you want to get through a particular thought, just stop recreating it. Because the individual thought is there and it goes, it's there and it goes, it's there and it goes. But if you find that you keep recreating the same thought, it's like if you get food poisoning. Okay? You ate something bad, something happened, you throw up, you've got some diarrhea, the body cleanses, and you automatically feel better. Sometimes it's half a day, sometimes it's a day. But automatically that which is in you that is detrimental to the system will find its way out. And then you're better. Until and unless you go back and eat that same thing again. And so if you knew that you'd gotten food poisoning and you'd been up all night sick from something you ate, you'd really have to ask yourself why you would go back to that place and eat that same food over and over again. Like, what is it that's propelling you to be sick? And in the same way, okay, you have a thought, anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, frustration, judgment. Happens to all of us. It arises, it's there, it pops. Just a moment. But if you find that you keep creating these, then you've really got to ask yourself, why am I doing this? It's not one thought that doesn't go away. It's that I keep creating more and more thoughts around the same subject. And if I know it's hurting me, why am I doing it? So to get through it, all you've got to do is be there. Like the night turns to day, like the waves move, the thoughts arise, they pop, they are over. But you need to be conscious and present enough, mindful enough, to be aware if you keep generating the same ones. Where are they coming from? Why are you doing this? What is the thought manufacturing factory within you that keeps sending you down that path? And in terms of getting through negative experiences, well, it's actually the same. Whether it's an internal experience or an external experience, it's happening in my mind or it's happening in the world around me. It's going to change. Nature of nature. Hate winter? No problem. Just sit tight for a little while. It'll become spring then summer. Hate summer? No problem. Sit tight for a little while. It'll become autumn and then winter. Whatever you're going through, the key is always just be there, be present with it. Don't try to push it away because we cannot actually push away thoughts. All you can do is have a better one. But if I say, I'm not going to think about chocolate cake, okay? Just try that. Not going to think about chocolate cake. Whatever you're going to do, just don't think about chocolate cake. No chocolate cake. Push it out of your mind. Right? So what happens? All the mind is full of is chocolate cake. You can't push it away. And in the same way, you can't push away experience. We're not here on earth to push life away. The way that I like to think about it is, so here's a glass of water. Let's call this your experience of yourself, your experience of your life, your world. Now, rocks fall in the glass. We'll call that negative life experiences, life happening to us. I'm holding this glass under an avalanche. Rocks are falling. It's going to cause the glass, the water, to splash all over the place. That's how most of us live. In that experience of life happens and we spill all over the place. Lots of waves, lots of turbulence. What most of us try to do is push those rocks away. We're in the glass trying to do this. But instead, since you can't actually do that, all you can do is shut yourself down, and that's obviously not what we're here for. Instead, if you dropped those same rocks instead of in the glass, if you dropped them in the ocean, what would happen? Right? Would it overflow its edges? Would there be a lot of turmoil? Big waves? They'd fall. Tiny little ripple. Barely noticeable. And certainly not noticeable at all if you were down in the depths of the ocean. And so the key to getting through life's bad experiences, negative experiences, dealing with them, is become the ocean. Just realize you're not a glass, you're the ocean. And yeah, annoying people happen. Fires happen. Illnesses happen. Getting fired from jobs happens. Stock market crashes happen. People you love betraying you, abusing you, harming you, it happens. But if you're the ocean, then those rocks fall. It's not that we are numbing ourselves. It's not that we're in denial or we're repressing it or pushing it away. You're just expanding your experience of self. And this is a practice that I found on so many personal levels, so many times, where the mind feels so troubled, typically by sort of either or situations. You're stuck in this bind. And what you realize is the answer is not to push something away. The answer is not to somehow try to fix the bind, but to realize that there's actually enough spaciousness in you for it all to exist. We swim in the ocean. We love the ocean. And there are sharks. And there's jellyfish. And you can melt into the waves. You can float on the waves. You can merge into the ocean. We dive deep. And there's sharks. And there's jellyfish. And we bathe in ecstasy in the ocean. And it's just about there being a spaciousness in which, yeah, this is happening. And it's not the only thing happening. There's a spaciousness in me in which this can also be happening. And my awareness and my joy and my experience and my truth and my love is also happening. So focus on that. Just think, I'm not a glass, I'm the ocean. And this too shall pass. It's a wave in the ocean, whatever it may be. But I'm not the wave, I'm the ocean.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. When one has such an open heart, how does one protect oneself, love oneself, and also maintain boundaries at the same time? How do we balance divine love with the human physical need and longing for a romantic partner, when the ideal is to love without expectation and attachment? So last night we were talking about the need for a companion. Someone had asked, do we need a companion in life? I've had bad experiences. Do we need one? And tonight we shift into a kind of expanded version of that, a deepening version of that, because I had spoken last night about, yes, you need connection, but ultimately the connection is with God. And even if you've got a companion, a spouse, a partner, nonetheless, that partner should bring about a connection with God. So tonight we go into the layer deeper of that, which is, if I've got that connection with God, or I'm working on that connection with God, if bhakti is a part of my path, a deep part of my path, how do I also bring in actual human relationship? Is it enough to just have bhakti? And if within bhakti, for the divine, there's also a sense of yearning for that connection with a human being, how do we deal with that? So we remember that ultimately, the highest, deepest goal of our life, purpose of our life, is experiencing oneness with God. Like, that's why we're here. Nobody is put on earth with the explicit duty of, you must fulfill this particular career. You must become a CEO of this, or a president of that, or the inventor of this, or the billionaire of that, or chairman over here. And similarly, we're not put onto this earth with a sense of, you must become the companion of this one, or the husband of this one, or the spouse of this one. These are all different aspects of ways in which we fulfill our karmic journey. They're all different threads in the tapestry of our karmic journey. But ultimately, the deepest, highest, truest reason we're here is to wake up into the truth of our own divinity. That two becomes one in the experience with the divine, the awareness that I am one with God. Now, where does relationship fall in with that? If I'm on that path, where does my relationships fall in, my marriage fall in? So it falls in a couple of places. First of all, for some, as we were talking last night, it's not necessary. Those are the ones with the dharma to be monastic. The sannyasis, the monks, the nuns, those for whom the connection is just with the divine. And then there's the vast majority of others for whom their dharma really is meant to be unfolded in relationship. And so there's two main ways that relationship becomes part of our core deep dharma rather than just drama. Usually relationships are drama. The question is how to make it dharma rather than drama. So on the most basic level, it becomes dharma when we are quite literally fulfilling the grest ashram phase of our life. The householder phase, we get married, we have children, we have careers, we contribute to society, we raise children with values and ethics and connection to spirit, sort of doing our part to serve the world through giving them beautiful beings for the next generation. But on a really deep spiritual path, for those who are really deeply spiritually anchored and grounded and drenched in a way in the ocean of spirituality, the partnership itself becomes a way to experience the divine. Through that loved one, you connect with the divine. Now, that's really tricky because, of course, the loved one is a human. They're going to be stressed out sometimes. They're going to be in a rush sometimes. They're going to say things sometimes that they shouldn't have said. They're not always going to live up to the standards of the deity you are worshiping in your temple. And so connecting to God through them doesn't mean holding them up to the standards of the God we worship in our temples. But what it means is seeing them with the eyes of devotion. And you know, it's really beautiful. I was talking about this somewhere recently, how we've been given all of these different manifestations of the divine in the Hindu tradition. We've got all of these divine incarnations ranging from, not limited to, but ranging from Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Ram, Hanumanji, Ganeshji, Bhagwan Shiva. We've got all of these aspects of, avatars of, and I'm not going to go into the theological differences here, but point being, each of them in form has their own characteristics. So Krishna, when he was younger, is referred to all the time as being mischievous and naughty. And, you know, he's the one kind of playing his games and his tricks on his mom and the gopis and their mothers and all of the other kind of milkmaids to steal what he wants. And then we've got Bhagwan Ram, for whom the idea of playing a trick on someone or stealing something is just as antithetical to the core of who he is as you could imagine. We've got all of these different embodiments with different personalities, you could say. And I actually think it's to give us ways of connecting to the divine through our loved ones, regardless of what they're like. So if our child is just annoying us to no end, but we're just trying to see them as divine beings, we can say, oh, look, you're being like Krishna. This is what Krishna did. And we can start to see them as Krishna. If we've got a loved one who we may see as a little bit too kind of stuck in his ways of doing things or what he thinks is right, maybe we want to be a little bit more flexible, you could say. Adventurous, mischievous, even, you could say. We have this epitome of Dharma in Bhagwan Ram. We could sort of assume, here I am married to Bhagwan Ram. He won't even waver an inch here or there from his path of righteousness. And we're given these different stories and different personalities, I think, so that, for one of the reasons, so that as we're on a path of seeing the divine in our loved one, we've got all of these beautiful and wonderful examples to be able to say, oh, you are being just like, and to pull a divine example out of our mind to help us remember that this being, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a child, is actually the divine. And that our opportunity is to see the divine in them. So, if divine love and bhakti is your path, don't stop your meditative practices, don't stop your devotional practices and put 100% of that energy into your partner, but allow your partnership to also be an aspect of your bhakti. It shouldn't be separate. It shouldn't be, here's my devotion over here, and then my marriage over here. You should be able to weave your partnership into your devotional practice and to see that loved one as an embodiment of the divine. Not that it means that everything that he or she does is perfect. And again, we've got these examples that we're given of when God gets naughty, right? When God plays tricks, when God is mischievous, when God is annoying to his parents. And to be able to just see the divine in the loved one like that, wherever you look, in the partner and everywhere. I mean, that's ultimately the highest form of bhakti, is to actually see God in all. There's this beautiful poem by a very famous poet named Namdevji, and I have to learn the poem in Hindi because it works a lot better in Hindi than it does in English. But it's a beautiful poem about the poet is making chapatis, and this dog comes up and steals a chapati and runs away with it. And the poet essentially calls after it, "Oh God, you've appeared before me today in the form of this dog who has stolen my chapati and run away." And the poet runs after the dog with a bowl of ghee, saying, "Don't eat it dry, let me put some ghee on it." you've appeared in this beautiful form of a dog, at least for God's sakes, take the ghee on your chapati. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful poem and teaching of bhakti yoga, of real divine love. When you are in love with God, even a random dog comes up and steals your chapati. And where most of us would just yell or, curse the dog or at most say, ugh, and go back to our rolling of chapatis, the true devotee sees this was God who came and runs down the street following the dog with a bowl of ghee to make the chapati taste better. So it teaches us that when we're really on the path of bhakti, not only our romantic partner, our spouse, but every being we interact with becomes a reflection of that divine and another opportunity to be in love with God.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. Yeah, we all get stuck in thoughts and thought patterns. The way to break it is the way that we break any habit. Because the reason that we get stuck in these patterns is it literally just becomes a habit. Like, this is how I think. This is how I am. And the thought itself, or the pattern of thought, takes hold, quite literally, of the neurons of our brain and changes the way they function. We think that thoughts are somehow this thing and they're, coming into me. They're being produced by my brain cells. That's why when we talk about them as bubbles, that's really what they are. Each individual thought is just a bubble. But what happens is my brain gets in the habit of thinking in a certain way, of having the neurons work in a certain way, in a pattern. What you could call a sanskara. Right? It's an impression. It's a way of moving. In neurology, they say neurons that fire together, wire together. So for example, let's say I'm angry and I throw a temper tantrum. And in that temper tantrum, I've got this huge rush of endorphins. And in that rush of endorphins, the pain that I was feeling is sort of numbed. Because as I'm throwing a temper tantrum, I'm hyperventilating and I'm literally causing a rush of these hormones in the body that block pain. And so, wow, I feel so much better after my temper tantrum. Now what happens? Next time I'm angry, I'm much more likely to throw a temper tantrum, not because I have cognitively said, oh, that felt better, but because I've created a neural network, a pattern that says anger, temper tantrum. In the West, sadly, in the teachings of psychology, we speak a lot about just get it out, as though somehow emotions were things like something bad you'd eaten, some bad food that once you vomit, you're just going to feel better. But our emotions are not actually like that. You actually can't vomit them up. You can't have them surgically removed. There isn't a way to just get it out. And the more we get it out like that, all that happens is we become more likely to throw temper tantrums. We're more likely to do it rather than less likely. Because it has wired together in my brain anger, temper tantrum, relief. Now that is how I act. Thought patterns happen very similarly. A thought takes hold in my mind. Life isn't fair. My life especially is not fair. Everybody gets things that are better than I do. People take advantage of me. I always get the short end of the stick. I do good things and bad things happen to me. Life isn't fair. We'll just call that my thought pattern that is now stuck in my mind. Well, the more I think that, the stronger the groove in my mind becomes that this is how I think. Now, everything that happens, I trip and I fall and I say, oh, see, I told you, life isn't fair. The guy next to me didn't trip on the rock. I tripped on the rock because life is out to get me. In some way, the universe is out to get me. I'm the one who always gets stuck doing this, doing that. I get no love, I get no appreciation, I get no reward, I get nothing. This is, every time I think that, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And the problem is that when I say I'm not going to think that, I still make it deeper. I'm no longer going to think that life isn't fair. Not going to think that life isn't fair. Yes, I just tripped, but I won't think that life isn't fair. So, life isn't fair is still that which is flowing through my mind and my thoughts. The only way to break that habit is to give yourself a different way of thinking. Just a different way. If you take, well, let's take this piece of paper. Make it a little thicker. Now imagine that this is somewhat thicker, that it's maybe a piece of stone or a piece of wood or whatever it is. If I took my fingernail or a key or a coin and I went like this over and over and over again in one place, it would make a groove. If I then took water and I poured it over, most of the water would go into that groove. And the more water that flowed in that groove, the deeper the groove would get. And the deeper the groove got, the more likely it was that when I pour water, it's going to go in the groove. This is how river valleys are created. And it's how our thought patterns, our sanskaras, are created. Over and over and over again, an impression in our mind, in our neural networks. Every time I think life isn't fair, it's this. It's this. Then I trip and fall, means life happens. It's like the water. Whatever happens when that water falls, it's going to go in the groove. So whatever it is that happens in my life, it's going to come now into this groove. So what do? I start creating a new groove over here. I can't yell at this groove and expect it to somehow fill itself back up. You can't yell at your neurons and somehow expect them to stop firing in that way. But you create a new groove over here. Deeper and deeper. Deeper. I am blessed. The universe is my friend. The universe loves me. Over and over and over. Everything is happening for my benefit. Over and over. And now when you pour water, half of it goes here, half of it goes there. But as I keep working this groove, and it gets deeper than this one, now more of the water comes here. Now when life happens, it flows here. And because the brain is constantly changing, very much like a natural river valley, not at all like a piece of paper or a rock, this groove will actually fill in. If a river stops flowing in a river valley, over time, grass is going to grow, vegetation will come, trees will grow. Slowly, slowly, the valley will fill itself in. So that's what you do. You just choose a different thought. A mantra is also very, very powerful to break the cycle. If instead of thinking life isn't fair, I start chanting my mantra, it's a very powerful, immediate way of shifting my mind. So even before you try to give a different thought, you may just decide to just free yourself from that pattern altogether, that you don't need a different thought necessarily. And you can instead just use your mantra. Whenever the thought arises, just chant the mantra. And slowly, 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 that pattern will let go and stop.
The future of Internet radio is here. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit RAIN.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. does denying the needs of the body and suppressing emotions create mental problems? If yes, should seekers renounce? So first of all, renunciation is not the answer to needs of the body or emotional issues. That becomes just repression or denial. That's just denial in saffron clothes. That's not what renunciation is about. It's not, oh, I've got these needs or I have these emotions and I don't want to deal with them, therefore I'm going to put on saffron clothes and pretend that I don't have them. Doesn't work. As anybody who's ever tried to change their clothes into anything knows, what you wear, it doesn't change what's going on in your mind or in the chemicals of your body. It reminds us of a path we're walking. But if you're angry in jeans and a t-shirt, you're going to be angry in saffron clothes. If you are lustful and greedy in jeans and a t-shirt, you're going to be lustful and greedy in saffron robes. You're just going to be more repressed about it. Or you're going to try to hide it more. So that doesn't actually serve anyone. So first of all, denying the needs of the body, does it cause mental problems? Well, first of all, it causes physical problems. The body has needs. Food, water, sleep, oxygen. Those are kind of the most basic. And yeah, in spiritual work, we do for short times deny those needs for a short time. Not long enough to harm the body, but long enough actually to strengthen the mind, to teach us, the body is clamoring for food, but I'm fasting today. I'm not responding to that. And yet here I am. The sky hasn't fallen. I haven't exploded or imploded. The world hasn't ceased to exist. And it's a very powerful lesson because it teaches us that we are not simply responses to stimuli. We're not like Pavlov's dogs that salivate at a bell and, well, we don't have a choice. Yeah, sometimes the body sends a signal. It wants food, it wants water, it wants sleep, it wants sex, it wants this. And we act like, oh my God, I had no choice. What fasting does in a healthy way, what staying awake all night, every once in a while, we do it sometimes on Shivaratri, for example, or Krishna Janmashtami, or certain full moons. There are just very auspicious nights sometimes during the year to stay awake and meditate all night. And they're just very powerful times, not just to be awake in the night, but to teach the mind that just because the body is saying sleep doesn't mean I have to be a robot responding to it. Body can say sleep. And I say, not tonight. Not that sleep is bad, not that I'm not going to sleep again, not that we shouldn't get a good night's sleep, we should. And it's a very powerful way of training the mind to every once in a while engage in these practices, whether it's a short-term fast, whether it's staying awake all night meditating, whatever it may be, but something in which you know you're going to go back to it. I am going to eat again. I am going to sleep again. But simply to train the mind I'm not just a reactionary mechanism. There's some chemical reaction in the body and I jump to attention. The mind says eat, I eat. The mind says do this, I do it. So it trains the mind. Now, if you don't give in to the body's needs ever, if you literally starve yourself, you will suffer. If you stop sleeping, you will suffer. There's lots of literature about, I think it's 2 nights of sleep. I can't remember exactly the statistics, but something like going 24 hours without sleep is something like the equivalent of drinking 3 glasses of alcohol. You're drunk. The mind and the brain and the body is that badly impaired. So to not sleep, to not eat, to not drink harms the body before it even harms the emotions. But in short-term controlled bursts, it's actually very, very powerful as a practice, a spiritual practice to remind us that we are not just slaves. In terms of suppression of emotion, yeah, you get mental problems. I mean, you become unhealthy. Mental health cannot be achieved through suppression. To simply say, I'm not angry, right? Somebody says to us, what's wrong? We say, nothing. Well, what is that actually achieved, right? We know we're angry. They obviously know we're angry. It's achieved nothing but to draw a wedge further between us and that person who asked. And to deny it to ourselves is just as detrimental. You can't simply decide you are not angry. You have to actually work with anger. You have to make decisions that whatever it is that causes anger, my expectations, my grudges, that I'm actually going to work with those and let them go so that anger doesn't arise. Not just that I'm going to take it and suppress it. So, whenever emotions are there, what I always say is, allow them. But don't hook the awareness into it. So, it arises like a wave on the beach. It comes and it peaks and it dissipates and goes. We get stuck in emotions when we hook ourselves into it, when we start telling ourselves a story about it. So if I notice anger is arising, just the pure energy of anger, I'm not going to suppress it, I'm not going to deny it, I'm not going to repress it, but I'm also not going to get engaged in a whole drama around it. I'm not going to let the mind get into its whole story of why I'm angry and how dare that person and I'm so nice to them and I do everything and then they treat me like junk and it's not fair and who do they think they are, and that's not healthy. All that does is it just keeps creating more and more anger. It just keeps intensifying it. It's not actually helping you heal from it. It's just building it up more and more and more. So when emotions arise, we just notice them. Anger. Okay. And then you just allow it. It's just an energy. Just like any energy. You close your eyes and you allow it to come into the body. And you just stay anchored in the breath. And it'll do its thing. It'll literally rise in the body. You'll feel the breath get a little shorter. You'll feel it, heartbeat start to increase a little. You may find yourself a little flushed. But you just keep drawing the awareness to the breath. Not to stop the anger, but just to stay grounded in the midst of it. Literally like you would if there were a big wave in the ocean. You just stay anchored and grounded. And it just comes and it rises and it peaks, and you're still sitting. You're still breathing. And then it dissipates, and again, like a wave, it just goes back out to sea. So that's the way to deal with emotions. Don't repress them or deny them. You'll give yourself not only mental health issues, but physical health issues, because guess what? The mind and the body are not separate. What we think, how we feel, is directly linked to not only our mental health, but our physical health. So we allow it. We accept it. We see it. Not suppressing, not denying. You can't renounce anger. When we talk about renunciation, it's a renunciation of different types of attachments. It's a renunciation of different worldviews. It's a renunciation of different activities. But it's not a renunciation of emotion. You can't do that. The only way for them to dissipate is for you to notice them, be aware, allow. And then automatically they wane on their own. If you can just unhook the mind that wants to keep repeating it over and over and over again from it.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.